If you're gonna tell them everything, tell them I'm a good kisser. Tell them all the things you told me in your desperate whisper. If you're gonna tell them everything, don't leave out the good part. Tell them the way that you broke my heart when you told me that you missed her. Tell them I'm a good kisser. Tell them I'm a good kisser. You know I'm not proud of the thing that we did. Did it work out just the way that you wanted it? After it all, I stood up tall. I kept my mouth shut so you wouldn't fall. Now everybody's talking about me, 'cause you were dirty me up just to get yourself clean. Get yourself clean. If you're gonna tell them everything, tell them I'm a good kisser. Tell them all the things you told me in your desperate whisper. If you're gonna tell them everything, don't leave out the good part. Tell them the way that you broke my heart when you told me that you missed her. Tell them I'm a good kisser. Tell them I'm a good kisser. Tell them I'm a good kisser. Tell them I'm a good, not good. Tell them I'm a good kisser. Should I have been wasting my time on you at all? No, no, no. Should I have seen the proud red writing on the wall? Well, I've still got time. You've got your story, and you know I've got mine. Tell them I'm a good kisser. 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 Tell them I'm a good, not good. Tell them I'm a good kisser. Tell them I'm a good. Tell them I'm a good. Tell them I'm a good kisser.
It is Artist Direct on FM 100.5, all thanks to Singing Hammers Construction. John Francois here with the drummer for the band Lake Street Dive, and his name is Mike. Now, Mike, what is your last name again?
Calabrese.
Calabrese, Mike Calabrese. How you doing today, Mike?
Great. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I've been hearing quite a bit of Lake Street Dive right here on FM 100.5 KDEC, and I know that you guys have a new album coming out. Now, for those listeners out there who may be tuning into Lake Street Dive for the first time, tell us how the band first came together.
Well, we formed in college almost 14 years ago, and we were all going to music school, and it was the type of place where people would get together in lots of various incarnations of groups. Didn't matter who was in it, just as long as you found, a drummer, a bass player, someone who could sing, and whatever you did, And so McDuck, who's the trumpet player and guitar player for the band, and the first songwriter for the band, he put us together. He had a concept for a band, wanted to, see what we could do. So he got us in a room together, and we walked in, and on the chalkboard it said Lake Street Dive. He already had the concept, the name picked out. then we started trying some stuff out, and those early songs were pretty terrible. So it took some years to work out exactly what we did well.
All right, and if I'm not mistaken, the name Lake Street Dive, does that come from dive bars, if I remember correctly?
Exactly. So the concept was like, we were all jazz musicians, but, people don't really go out to bars to listen to jazz much anymore. So his idea was like, well, what if we played a little bit of country music so people could dance, but it had a jazz bent to it, and it was kind of like free and avant-garde, and so it was satisfying for us, but also satisfying for people at the bar, and that is a concept that I have yet to hear actually communicate.
So tell me, that's interesting that you guys started out doing sort of a jazz thing, and do you still kind of do that nowadays? Or are you still incorporating jazz influences from your early days into your current work?
No, it's definitely a style approach that we utilized just because it was really the common ground that we shared at the time, or the most prevalent common ground that we shared. But as the years went by, we were like gradually were able to admit to each other and ourselves that, we like backbeats more, and Paul Simon is more interesting than, I don't know, name a obscure jazz musician. So we decided to just follow that route instead. It was nice to realize that we all shared passion for pop songwriting and music that makes people get up and dance.
Awesome. And you guys all met at the New England Conservatory of Music, if I'm not mistaken, in Boston?
That's it.
Oh, great. Now, you do, I'm guessing in that school you did have a lot of classical music training, right?
Yeah, there was like a classical department if you wanted to study like Debussy and like get really deep into that realm. But they're actually the first school in the country to have an accredited jazz degree. And so you could go there and study just jazz. But, it's like, studying music in a classroom and taking tests and reading a lot of music and writing arrangements for big bands. It was a lot of like hands-on, theory training and stuff like that.
Okay, and would you say sort of the study discipline behind conservatory music training, do you think that's helped you a lot with what you're doing today currently in Lake Street Dive?
In certain ways it does. Like say you're rehearsing and you're trying to just communicate maybe a slightly more complex musical idea to someone else. There's just a vocabulary and an understanding and a common ground that, you learn what to call things, what things sound like, and how to communicate those things to each other. So there's like a language there. There's also the ability, like McDuck, for instance. I remember driving ourselves around in a van. Actually, it was in the Midwest, I think, and we actually had local fans of the band who were also jazz players who wanted to play horns with us at a show. Wow. And so literally in the van ride over, McDuck and some staff paper and a pencil wrote out horn arrangements
wow.
for that show, put them in front of them, and we played the songs down that night.
Oh my goodness! Now, as someone who doesn't know anything about reading music or sheet music, tell me what that's like, writing horn arrangements. Was that an easy 1, 2, 3 coming from your conservatory training? Did it take some time to sort of find a groove? What's that like?
For someone like McDuck who went to school for composition and is a horn player, I'm sure it was easier. But just to imagine, like, usually when you're doing something like that, even professionals will be sitting at a piano, able to play out the ideas that they're putting down on paper and transposing them for the different keys that these instruments are in. And McDuck was literally doing it in his head. And so there's the amount of practice that you get doing things like that when you're in school definitely can come in handy if they need to. I won't say that it was easy or the arrangements were the second coming of Duke Ellington, but able to do it to begin with at all is quite a feat.
Wow. Well, this is Artist Direct on FM 100.5. Thanks to Singing Hammers Construction. If you're just tuning in, I'm speaking with Mike Calabrese, who is the drummer for the band Lake Street Dive. Now, do you also do vocals and play around with the organ? Is that correct, Mike?
I've thankfully, I've every now and again I'll touch an organ if I have a very specific part that I want recorded. But now those duties are handed over to the newest member of Lake Street Dive, who is Aki Bermise, who was touring with us last year on the road and is playing all the keys on the new record. But yes, I play drums, I sing background vocals. Every so often I'll take a verse on a song.
Okay, now I wonder, like doing drums, going into background vocals, are there many moments where you have to incorporate all that into the same time? How is that? Is that overwhelming or?
Well, yeah. If you're playing a live show, I can't conceivably stop playing drums in the middle of it just to sing. But thankfully, one of the things you practice as a drummer is not only just specific things to play on drums, but the general concept of independence. So like you're taught from a young age, you need to make every limb do a different thing at the same time. And incorporating singing into that, I wouldn't say it was easy, but I had a framework, at least a methodology for which to apply the practice of such a bizarre and odd-feeling thing.
Okay. Now, I used to take drum lessons when I was in college. It was very amateur. Obviously, it didn't work out for me. But what is the style of drumming where I think it's like your left hand and you sort of have like the wrist up as you're banging on the, what is it called, the snare drum. So your left wrist is facing upward instead of like the other way where it seems like it's overhand. Do you know what I'm talking about, Mike?
Yeah. You're talking about traditional grip, which is like what I think Swiss, traditional Swiss snare drum batteries. Because you would like sling a drum over your shoulder, and just the angle of it was easier if you're, in a right-handed world. If usually your left hand were holding the stick in a palm up fashion as opposed to a palm down fashion.
Right. So what style do you use?
I am primarily match grip, but as a studied jazz player, occasionally I will slip into traditional. Should strike me.
Okay. Which do you find more natural, more convenient?
Definitely match. It's easier to hit harder that way.
Gotcha. Who are some of your drummer influences?
Oh man. Well, it all starts with Ringo for me.
Right. Oh, okay.
Age. It was, all Ringo all the time. And he, especially is an inspiration, if not for just like what I play, but like, he is what you would call a song drummer. He is a guy who listens to the music, listens to the vocalist, listens to the composition, and, provides a service role. A lot of people give Ringo a hard time because it's like, oh, it's so simple. Anybody could do it. But that is certainly not the case. I think it's, it's hard to do what he does in a philosophical sense, to do it as well, because he is always appropriate for the song he's playing. And that is something you can't say of many drummers out there, even those who have incredible chops or technique. So it kind of starts with Ringo there. But, as a guy from Philly, to this day, I'm just in awe of Questlove.
From the Roots. Yeah.
He's great. Mitch Mitchell from the Jimi Hendrix Experience, and first jazz drummer love of mine, who was Philly Joe Jones.
Nice.
Who I think kind of epitomizes bop drumming to an incredible post-bop more, I guess, technically, but bop.
Okay, wow. So does Lake Street Dive do covers every now and then? Have you guys done like Beatles covers?
Do we do covers? Of course, yeah.
Okay.
In fact, an album that is almost entirely covers, and we've had them in our shows since the very early days. We have never covered a Beatles song, but we do cover a Paul McCartney song.
Oh, okay.
Wings Years. A lot of people overlook, or they picked a side when the Beatles broke up, and they kind of like followed whatever their favorite Beatle was through their solo career. And so they may not know this song by Paul McCartney, but it's called Let Me Roll It. And it's one of our favorite covers to do, and we do it to this day.
Now, I have to imagine that the process of preparing for a cover, is it a lot of pressure? Because I feel like you're trying to either top the original performer or maybe match what they were doing. What's that like, as opposed to, say, doing your own original song where, you are the only one performing it?
We learned a long time ago that it's a waste of time to try to attempt to recreate exactly what an artist is doing. One, because we're not that person, and usually we're not as talented as they
Right.
were or are. And two, what's the point? So it's like we've usually relied on the fact that we have at least, especially in the early days, an unusual instrumentation. So we already have that to our advantage in terms of making the cover sound different. But when we pick covers, it's covers that are primarily a good song. And so that makes it definitely less daunting because the song is inspiring. You can strip it down. A good song, we always say the definition is like you can take it down to your voice and an acoustic guitar or a piano, and it still stands alone. You don't need production. You don't need fireworks all over it to make it come across or sound good. So when it's a good song, and the first thing we do is we strip it down to its essentials, and if they're strong enough on their own with the instrumentation we have, we find enough inspiration there to carry us through the arranging process. And usually the song will tell us whether or not it wants to be played by us, and we let the song make the choice.
Oh, I see. If you're just joining us, I'm talking to Mike Calabrese, the drummer for the band Lake Street Dive, right here on Artist Direct on FM 100.5, thanks to Singing Hammers Construction. How many albums has Lake Street Dive released, Mike?
The ones that are released and still being sold, this will be our 5th. So you can find 5 of them at the merch table and online. The first 2 we ever did are not to be heard by anyone. They're what I like warm-up albums,
Okay.
and all copies should be burned.
Okay, well, good to know. And let's see here. So you have is your latest album, is it already released at the moment, or is it still in the works?
It is being released on May 4th, so mark it in your calendars, and you can pre-order it at the moment, but you only get one download. And then May 4th it'll be released, and the whole world will be able to hear it.
Okay, and this song that we're about to hear from the new album, it's called I Can Change. If you don't mind, Mike, tell us a little bit about this song.
This song was a bit of a departure for us. Because we self-produced this album, we were given free rein to sort of do whatever we'd like, and one of those things was to, everybody has an expectation of how we sound as a band. We're an upbeat, fully functional, dance in your pants kind of approach usually. So we were like, why don't we take down the tempo? We strip away the instrumentation, and just like a cover song, let's take a song, have it be voice and guitar, and because we're in the studio, we might as well add some glitter to the edges of it. But it's a very stripped down, personal number and a little more melancholy, I guess, than we normally do. But hey, we're getting older and we're getting more serious.
Awesome. Well, it's Mike Calabrese, the drummer behind Lake Street Dive, and their new album is coming out May 4th. We'll be hearing a track from that album called I Can Change, and I believe on the website you guys have a listing of your tour dates for this year, and one of them is Des Moines, right here in Iowa, May 18th, St. Paul, Minnesota, May 17th. It was a pleasure to speak with you, Mike, and best of luck with, Lake Street Dive and the continuation of music.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Hey, cast a long shadow. I know that I lie in it and let it rule my mind from time to time. Escaping an old battle that clings on like a vine to me, whispers dirty lies in my ear. I know we didn't start this fight. And I won't let it rule my heart tonight. I can change, I can change, I can still change, I can still change. Tracing an old pattern, drawing the lines from where I am and from where I wanna be. Forget that old adage that history continues to keep us from the world we wanna see. I am scared that I won't get it right, but fear won't rule my heart tonight. I can change, I can change, I can still change, I can still change.